Puss.
Pussy.
Oh, you know what else is in your pussy?
Oh,
Another great
yes.
episode of the You Wrestler Review. The
Oh,
Wrestler
yes.
Review.
Yeah.
Everybody. Also, for your Patreon listeners, last week's video is still being processed. It will be up on Patreon someday. We are sorry. It's all my fault.
We should have just taped it off my camera. I thought at the time, but we didn't do it. My name is Dylan Gott. John.
My name is John Hastings, and today we
Fuck.
are talking about what's going on.
No, I was like turned on by your name. That's what I was
Goddamn
doing.
right. Today we're talking about a man that if he was wrestling right now would be Kenny Omega's rival for the belt, but instead he was wrestling in the late 70s, so he was considered very short and gross. Precious Paul Ellering.
Precious Paul, great guy. I did not know how few years he was in wrestling before he was just a manager because he got fucking injured his dick.
Yeah, he
Injured his jizz
fucking
off.
exactly. What basically Paul Ellering has a fat, long cock, and one of the Guerreros stepped on it so much that he got sepsis, so that he had to retire.
Here's what's happening right now. If you're watching the video, I am in my unfinished garage, and John is, I'm assuming, under the blankies.
I am. My feetsies are tucked in, and I'm so excited to talk about a guy who I think gave the best promo in the history of the first 10 WrestleManias.
Oh, also, who is he trained by? Who's
Judo Gene LaBelle.
Vern Gagne?
Oh my God. Yeah, so he's an AWA sort of stalwart. He's one of the first big guys to come out of Minnesota. It's also very weird in that he is one of the last, like, this guy is your manager. What that actually means is this guy does your entire life. That's the kind of manager he was for the LAD. But basically, he was your classic territorial heel. He was this short shithead who came in with blonde hair, talked about being beautiful. I watched his debut in Memphis against Jerry Lawler. And first of all, Jimmy Hart in Memphis is so much better than Jimmy Hart in the WWF, and he's so good in the WWF. But like in Memphis, he talks way more. He's not the listen, baby. He's like, the king. Out comes fucking Precious Paul Ellering. They have a big ding dong, but man, the one thing I'll say is Paul Ellering is small. Like he is nowadays wrestler size in a time when you couldn't be, and he was a like pretty top tier territorial heel. Like that's pretty amazing. This guy's got charisma up his fucking ass.
Yeah, although I will say this, his promos were a bit robotic, where it was like, "I'm Precious Paul." Ha ha ha.
Yeah, but also if you look at all the other promos that were happening around him, it's pretty dynamic. Like it's especially when you get like his wrestling career is sort of nothing. It's basically he goes around all the territories. He debuts dramatically. He points at the camera and he says declarative things with verbs.
I'm fucking hot. Fuck you, ugly fucks. I'll fucking jack off and you'll lick it up like dogs.
Your wives are going to know why I keep pine cones in my trousers. Makes my balls seem relatively good.
This is what I like. This is what it should have been. What did he say? Paul Ellering also said in an interview that it's good that they didn't just let us go completely off script because there would have been some F's in there.
Yeah, and you hope that it means UCKS.
I don't think it would have been. It would have been Hawk going, well, it's just not godly.
Well, in prison, I understand, but out here in society, you got women.
Civil unions should be enough for them. Anyway, I'm also wrestling Arn Anderson.
I don't get the Arn Anderson reference.
No, it's just he would cut a promo about how much he hates gay people completely separate from wrestling.
I just always feel like the LOD is the weirdest combination of guys because you have Paul Ellering, who is basically just a great old, say, territorial heel again, who fucks up his knee real bad in, I believe, Memphis.
Sure.
Yeah,
he gets in a car accident. Here's one important thing. Gets in a car accident, goes to a doctor that's part of Dr. James Andrews' clinic. That doctor misdiagnoses it as a dislocation. He says it's going to be 2 months, whatever. Ellering comes back in 2 months to Dr. James Andrews and goes, okay, how's my dislocation going? And Dr. James Andrews goes, no, this is a fucking torn, ruptured patella. Which doctor? And then gets the doctor and goes, how the fuck did you say this was dislocated? Look at his patella. And then that other doctor said, I'm sorry, Mr. Andrews. And then he said, this is what happens. And then he sucked his soft wiener. And Dr. James Andrews said, I'm very attracted to you, but I'm commanding my penis to stay soft.
I don't like how you say
The end of that was the end of that was the most important part. That was the true part. The rest of it I made up.
I don't like how you say Dr. James Andrews.
Mm-hmm. Well, they all do. Every wrestler says Dr. James Andrews, and Paul Ellering calls him Jim Andrews, which is such an old guy thing to do.
Also, have you
my name is James. It's Jim, buddy. All right, what's fucked up in my ass or whatever?
What hat do you think you maybe don't want to be wearing on the first photo when I Google you? What hat do you maybe not want to be wearing?
Ku Klux Klan hat.
No, well, it's in the vein. He evidently loves
Nazi hat?
The NFL team from Washington.
I mean, that makes sense. People weren't on the lookout for how explicitly racist that was back then.
I mean, that photo is in 2019.
Okay, well, yeah, there. He's an old man. What other excuses do you want me to do? I'm going to be like Jim Cornette excusing Ric Flair. He was leaving a gimmick. His gimmick was...
Yeah, his gimmick was bothering people. Oh, my God. Yeah, the wrestling world is really... Like, Tommy Dreamer has walked back everything, and then Jim Cornette walked it forward. It's pretty nuts.
Let's do this. Let's talk about, for 1 second, how great the Tommy Dreamer thing was, because it wasn't like it was live. He said that, months passed, and then it went on air. He never was like... Tommy Dreamer never tweeted okay, I say some fucked up shit about what Ric Flair did, and I believe the victim, whatever. And he was just like, oh, wait, people don't like that? Tommy Dreamer
here's what it is. Tommy Dreamer got yelled at by his wife. That's what it was. It was...
I think he got yelled at by losing all the money.
What the fuck, Tommy? What the fuck?
2 ponytails?
Yeah.
The other thing, too, but 2 ponytails?
I hope it's worth it, Tommy. That's all that read to me. Also, and then everyone was like, he was fired. He was just suspended. I think he'll be back in TNA before long.
Yeah, I've been having arguments with people where they're like, Me Too's coming. And I'm like, no, unfortunately. I think someone else said this, but like there needs to be unless there's an outside agency. Like, unless every flight... It would be funny that, like, there's a civil case against you, Ric Flair. Oh, who is it? Every single flight attended from 1976 till 2011.
Yeah, every woman who worked at a goddamn Coco's or a Kelsey's in North America between the years 1980 and 1995 have filed a class action lawsuit because you, quote-unquote, would walk in and go... Who's the meaty one for me to bite with my pee-pee?
Yeah, Ric Flair does strike me as a guy who would just come in and be like, we're fucking partying in this East Side Mario's.
Yeah, Ric Flair is the kind of guy that you want to stop him partying, you have to just walk him outside while he's holding booze and then close and lock the door. Like, he strikes me as you want to be done with the conversation, hang up the phone.
Yeah. But Paul Ellering, you should never be done with his conversation or whatever.
God damn right. Let me tell you who was never taking his dick out in front of flight attendants. It's a guy who wore a kimono and the Wall Street Journal. But the main thing to remember is Paul Ellering, very soon after getting injured, reveals himself to be a real weirdo in that he's just a guy who reads newspapers and is a little bit more literate than other professional wrestlers. And backstage personalities lose their shit about this.
Yeah, I remember there's a Road Warriors DVD, like from, I would say, what we will now think of as the heyday of DVDs, but 2005.
Oh my God, that documentary is sort of weird, though, because...
It's so funny, because they're like, yeah, Ellering was real different, because he would read the Wall Street Journal. Most guys would read porn. Just imagine, like, you're already oiled up, you're Tatanka, and you're just like, let me lay back and get a fucking hard dick around Virgil. Let's see. Well,
this is the thing that no one talks about road professions comedy being another one up until maybe 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
is that essentially it was people that wanted to be a wrestler, comedian, etc., and then a shitload of no one knows where I am people, and they get up to
People,
real sketchy, weird shit.
yeah, there's people who are like, I really wanted to be a wrestler, and then there's just, I'm on the run from my wife.
Yeah, I'm just not where I should be. How about that? Like the amount of, just speaking for me, the amount of guys that got a beer and a shot with dinner I've had to professionally work with is not, it's more than 3. And that's so intense. Like beer
Oh,
and a
yeah.
shot with dinner. What are you doing?
I mean, that's good stuff, though.
We're playing a classroom in Northern Ontario.
We're playing Blackpool, England. We're inside a kebab shop. Maybe you don't need to ask them if they're cool with you getting wasted.
Yeah, no, they are. They would prefer it.
Yeah, Blackpool's all right.
I remember playing a comedy club in a city called Liverpool. It was Hot Water Comedy Club, and there was a fight in the interval.
Okay.
A bunch of guys tried to attack the bouncer, and the bouncer attacked all of them. It was amazing. I was still smoking at the time. Well, that's crazy because I went outside to smoke, and I ended up watching the fight. But the best part of it was to make everyone calm down. They just said they'd leave the bar open during the interval. That's how you goddamn calm a crowd, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you who else knew how to calm a crowd. It's precious Paul Ellering. He'd read the Wall Street Journal and then talk stock tips with the other with the fans at ringside while the LOD were in smashing up opponents.
Who put Paul Ellering with the Road Warriors?
It was Vernon Grunion.
It was Ole Anderson.
Really? I thought it was gone. No, because they were in the NWA first. I always get that weirded out because I always think that they're in AWA first because they're all Minneapolis guys.
They started in '83 and
in Georgia.
And the other thing is, like Brock Lesnar, like Kurt Angle, like all these guys who were seen as like blue chip prospects.
So I was in my research. I watched a bunch of Paul Ellering shoot interviews about what it was like to be part of the Road Warrior machine. And he was like, we were the NWA's Andre the Giant. We didn't need belts. Yeah. We didn't need anything. All we needed was you put us on the poster, and then we showed up and did that. And that's all people cared about. And they were like, it was huge. And you couldn't stop it. There was nothing in the WWF had to rival it. What are you going to do?
Well, yeah, they're like, and this is the other thing about the 80s is that the anti-hero part of comic books is selling really well. You look at the Punisher and stuff like that, and the Road Warriors definitely did model themselves a lot after that, and they were a lot darker. And this comes up actually later on when you get them into the WWF, is that they're a lot darker characters than the WWF characters are, because they're good guys, but they'll still kill you. They're one of the first guys where it's like they didn't change at all from being heel to face. They were just like, they kill you no matter what.
They basically created the mold the Undertaker now lives in. In that the Undertaker, how did the Undertaker turn heel? He was like, or turn face. Don't hit Miss Elizabeth with a chair. And they're like, all right, that's
hit her with a bat. Yeah,
exactly. Welcome to WCW. But Paul Ellering very quickly just becomes a excellent and competent heel manager after a variety of knee injuries, and not even Dr. James, I love the Washington so much Andrews can save him.
Well, yeah, he hurts his knee. He becomes their manager, and they stick him. Like I said, they stick him with the Road Warriors. So that after you do cocaine, maybe do some pull-ups, and then and then Hawk goes, thanks.
Instead of just drinking bourbon, have some water when you're on your run. Okay.
Pretty much. But yeah, exactly. Animal is the, like, I would say, like, the serious athlete, as is Paul Ellering. And
it's so weird that the guy with the rat tail has the serious athlete energy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's never who's the reasonable one here. Well, the ones with the spider drawn on his forehead, of course.
But the Road Warriors, really, for the greater part of like 5 years, are just on the road until they land in Jim Crockett.
Dylan, you know what I call the Road Warriors sometimes?
What?
The Chode Warriors.
That's good stuff.
Thank you. They landed Jim Crockett Promotions where, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the crowds go butt fuck, and they are the greatest tag team presentation ever in the history of the Road Warriors, because it's their patchy, weird shoulder pads, and then Paul Ellering in a fucking kimono. Yes, fucking please.
And it's like, what is Paul Ellering's character is like? These guys are like two dudes from Mad Max, and I fucking love stocks.
Yeah, no, his character he's the big city fuck dude, and these are his two brutes.
Yeah, but it's like a weird.
But again,
it would be like,
again, wrestling presents businessmen the way that 13-year-old men, like 13-year-old boys, like manifest staying at home. Like if you leave a 13-year-old boy at home, they're putting on a bathrobe. They're pretending to like have a cocktail. They're just putting a lot of ice in a wine glass and putting Coke in it. You know what I mean? That's how wrestling impersonates businessmen. Where it's like, Japan is buying a lot of business and they read the Wall Street Journal. Do that. Like that's what wrestling is basically.
I just like that, like the Road Warriors, and it did work because Paul Ellering like does look evil. Like he looks Saturday morning cartoon evil, but it's just so funny to me.
And also all of his promos are da 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 da. Like he talks like a villain too. Like, what's the going up? Or then do you fear the coming down? Like everything sounds like a James Bond villain's plan.
I'm going to not beat you up. These guys are going to beat you up. Bye-bye. That was one of them.
But what's so also weird is he also, pardon me, being very much part of the Road Warrior package. The other thing he is, and is he ran their goddamn lives. He got both of those guys to every show. He drove the van, all of this sort of stuff, to the point that when Hawk died, Ellering went and got the van and then drove it to Hawk's funeral, weirdly.
I mean, that's symbolic, but also like totally like, I will say this, as far as being a manager goes, I guess you can't manage someone's like substance problem, but you know what I mean? It just seems like he'd be like reading the newspaper while Hawk just like did 6 lines at once off a buck knife, and he was like, interesting, PepsiCo is doing well.
Well, apparently what it is Hawk would just disappear for days. That was actually like Todd Gordon talks about, he knew he had Hawk's respect when Hawk called him and was like, not gonna make it to the show tonight, brother. And he's like, where are you? He's like, I'm in a cabin with 3 pals. We'll be holed up for about 4 more days. Bye. And it was like, oh shit.
That's fucking crazy. But then Hawk, of course, loses like years of his career, and Ellering loses
and his life.
Yeah, but that's after he does. This is the thing about Hawk. When you look him up, he doesn't die while he's an active wrestler. His heart,
it's pretty nuts.
It's pretty nuts. It's like the Roddy Piper death, where it's like his heart goes, "Wait, what did I do?" And then he dies.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot wait until the second half of this episode when we can talk about post-LOD Paul Ellering and also how weird his life is now. But basically, Paul Ellering is this weird thing of he makes enough money managing LOD and also hilariously plays the stock market very well in the 80s and 90s. So is one of those very rare things, which is a guy who is a professional wrestling figure, but rarely really needs the money. Like just kind of comes back because he loves it. Yeah. So he dips in and out. And after the Road Warriors basically go on their dominance tour of American wrestling territories and
Japan.
Like, never forget, anytime you saw a Road Warrior injury angle, it was just so they could go to Japan. Mm-hmm. Like, they are so quietly so big. Like, they are considered a big tag team. But when you think about it, like, they are the face of 2 Starcades, right? At least one, Skywalkers. They're the best tag team the WWF had in the 90s, like that debuted in the 90s. What was a better tag team than them in the 90s?
Than them? I don't know. The Nasty Boys, for sure.
Nope, wrong. You're an idiot.
No.
Fucking eat my poo, you big fuck.
I get what you're saying. And I also think it's really interesting that the NWA, without making them tag team champions or making either of them world champions, coordinated to have them book strong in every single territory.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But again, they were basically the non-Andre the Giant. They were the Sable and Goldberg effect of that particular wrestling war. There was nothing you could do to counter program against them. They were just fucking badass. And Paul Ellering was such a good part of that package because he added that element of danger by talking like this, and then we're talking like that.
Yeah, it gave them some organization, and I guarantee, like, as short a run when you look back on it as the glory days of LOD was, it gave them way longer run because they had someone saying, please don't do this, Hawk.
Or more like, okay, Hawk, here's how you get to the airport.
Yeah, before GPS too. This man was like, I remember him and Animal had a podcast where he's like, well, a lot of times we just went west and hoped for the best case scenario.
It's so
like,
crazy
geez.
where it's like, yeah, basically if you had an A to Z guide and hoped for the best.
That's fucking crazy.
Well, like when you started touring as a stand-up, Dylan, was it MapQuest or Maps? Because I remember like people had it printed out from MapQuest.
I remember MapQuest, and it was like, turn left at this, and you're like, look, and then no street has had a name for a while, and you're like, okay, I think we're fucked.
Yeah, I remember always having a map of Toronto still with me, and people were always like, we don't need that, and we needed it quite a few times.
Yeah, I remember when we had to walk.
What?
Because it was faster, yeah.
Than driving?
Sure.
I was just do a close show, though.
We're old guys.
I just remember when Dylan used to party. He'd be like, I don't want to get in a car. And it's like, Dylan, it's not drinking driving if you're not driving. And he's like, nah, I don't trust myself not to take over the wheel. I like it too much.
That's what I said, and then I was like, sorry, I don't even take the subway or the bus because I'll fucking just end up taking that shit over and crash.
Yeah, Dylan just keeps... Yeah. And you know what the point is?
I can crash it.
Goddamn right it is. So basically what happened is the LOD finally heads to the WWF. They don't bring Paul Ellering with him, or he doesn't want to go. He takes some time off.
His contract, for some reason, didn't expire. So what he does is he does a hair versus hair match, him and Teddy Long. And check this out. They're both so bald that it's like, who cares?
Yeah, it was one of the great...
another one? There was another famous one like that where it was like the guy was like full balding, and then it was like, my hair is gone. Oh, that was Kurt Angle, yeah. Kurt Angle was just like very much bald, and then they were like, we're going to shave off those 2 hairs. And he's like, oh no. But also, yes.
Pardon me. They sort of did it to CM Punk, but he didn't end up losing his hair. He got plugs.
CM Punk, no, yeah, they shaved his head, and he kept the like patchy ass head shaved and had a mask on. It was dope as shit.
Yeah, it was fucking rad. Man, I miss straight edge society. I wonder if they'll reunite in AEW like they've done with everything else. Yeah.
They will. There'll be Luke Gallows and CM Punk and Serena Deeb and then me. I'll be
Yeah, that's true. AEW loves 2 things: factions and former WWE champions.
But isn't it like
big ones?
But isn't it like exactly pretty much like the NWA, like this era of the NWA where they just were like, everyone's in a faction. Why? And it's funny because it's the same model as you would have.
Yeah, that is actually a good point. Everyone,
a bunch of movies, like how they remake any movie or any TV show now because it already has an existing brand. So it's like it's already tethered to that thing, so you know it better.
Yeah, there's already someone that will watch this already, so we can be like, listen, we'll get 8 people are going to watch. We're going to just redo the Attitude Era, which I think we're about a year away from Vince just being like, let's just show those episodes again.
Hey, how about this? How about I go on there, right, and I win the title, and then you guys give me a Cialis, and we see how long I can stay hard for. I
said Attitude Era, not when Vince becomes ECW champion.
Oh, yeah, that was pooper sick. But anyway, did you know this? Paul Ellering won the hair versus hair match against Teddy Long. And
in fact, I watched that match with friend of the show, Mike Lawrence.
Did you know this?
No.
It wasn't the head hair; it was pubes. So he shaved his pubes
with his teeth too. Did it backstage? And I've been sharpening them for Paul. Whatever makes you happy or not happy.
All right, so we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna talk about fucking Rocco for an hour and a half.
Are we going to talk about Rocco? We're going to talk about DUA, and then we're going to talk about the Authors of Pain. Greatest. It took me only until today. Occam's Razor. God damn it.
Occam's razor?
They're Occam and Razor, the Authors of
Acom
Pain.
and Razor.
Yeah, it's Occam's Razor.
Yeah, well, that's fucking not
That's
cool.
so fucking sick. See you after the break. Suck. All right, so now the LOD, Dylan, no time to wait. The LOD is in the WWE. It's WrestleMania 8. Paul Ellering comes out, said the LOD is the greatest LOD promo ever. It's got everything. Tell him, Hawk. Tell him, well, since we got here, we've been a runaway train. Now look who's driving. No one knows who Paul Ellering is.
No one knows.
It's so good. Just comes out and just talks about going up and down. We make our money the old-fashioned way. We beat people for it. Go on, Paul.
Yes.
Get after it.
We buy children and then sell them into sex slavery. Oops, wrong promo idea. Sorry.
The thing to remember is that I run the Iditarod not because I want to win, but because I'm looking for a way to join the Russian army.
Yeah, so he comes into the WWF in 1992. They've already been in for a couple years. And it's not really like he just kind of gets a call from
More like a
Vince and
couple
then
of
goes in.
beers.
But it's like Vince, even back
Couple of
then,
beers.
this is when he starts hating managers. You know
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Actually, no, because he uses managers pretty much until the Attitude Era, when it's like the only managers
does it.
become valets.
Yeah, the managers during the Attitude Era are insane. It's always like it's the sibling of the wrestler that wrestler wants to fuck.
Yeah, or just like, my valet is my sister, and that's what I like to bang bang.
Bow wow wow wow
That
wow
makes
wow
sense.
wow. Bow wow wow
Exactly.
wow 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 wow.
Exactly. So Ellering comes in. Shortly after that, they want to soften the Legion of Doom. Like I said, they're not into the
Yeah, this
anti-hero
is
stuff.
so weird. How do you soften these guys? Do you just get them to like be a little bit nicer? Maybe you book them in a certain way? No, you give them the creepiest puppet that was. What was the story of Rocco? It was like it was Hawk's possession when he was a kid, and that's why Hawk drinks.
Pretty much. And then Ellering, it's so funny because everyone's like, oh, Rocco sucked. And every interview he does, he's like, I liked it. Because like you said, he's like a man who's like, okay, I'll come back. Okay, I'm fired. Whatever. Like he doesn't need it. He doesn't. The
He's
only
not needed it
appearances he
since-
makes in wrestling after this are just Legion of Doom adjacent.
Yeah, because all he is he's like he's got two friends. He likes working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get like the LOD then like soldiers on without him.
Well, this is when it gets real fucked up because Hawk's getting so fucked up that it's starting to affect. Like he still looked good in the 80s.
This
and
is
then
the
90s he starts
crazy
looking
thing.
like a slob.
Yeah, he gets this weird, like he gets the most pronounced, like that guy used to work out body I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
He's doing steroids, but just drinking a lot.
Yeah, he's doing steroids, and his big thing apparently was crack cocaine. So I think
that
he
was his
assumed-
big thing.
His big thing was like he liked some pills, but what he loved was smoking crack cocaine with bikers. Which is also why you're like, wait a minute, he was like that high level of an athlete and a crack cocaine smoker. Like, yeah, no wonder Too Cold Scorpio felt like he could intimidate him. At that point, his lungs were probably tissue paper.
Well, and it was also like the finishing move they have, the Doomsday Device, is like, you're just gonna die. And then they finally hurt someone, because of course they did, because it's a crackhead clotheslining a guy.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's crazy is it's like noted booze man is the guy that has the most dangerous role.
Exactly. Expand on the Too Cold Scorpio Hawk story, though.
This Too Cold Scorpio Hawk story is during this weird period where basically, so what happens is the WWE gives them a puppet named Rocco. Hawk hates Rocco so much that after SummerSlam 92, he just doesn't come back from England, befriends some bikers, does crack, and the LOD break up because Hawk is like, for fuck's sakes, fuck this, and fucks off.
And then you look at it, and Ellering really is the guy who keeps it all together and gives Hawk and Animal some sort of, what do you call that? Just some sort of schedule and some sort of. I'd love to be a fly on the wall of, because
Yeah,
you could listen to 6 Paul Ellering interviews, and here's what they all are. I invested smartly. I really enjoyed waking up early and exercising.
And reading.
And then,
He always talks about how what he misses of wrestling is the downtime, so he could read a book a week.
Yeah.
But basically,
that's
there was
what
a
this guy's
yin and a
doing.
yang, and it's Paul Ellering and fucking Hawk. Like Hawk is
Yeah.
literally doing like, yeah, if you do DMT and heroin at the same time, it feels like someone's eating out your ass, but maple syrup. And Paul Ellering is reading like Ayn Rand and being like, oh, something called Appel Computers. Better buy that.
Yeah. If you were to make Paul Ellering now, it would be like a crypto bro that manages a powerhouse
Dylan.
team.
Dylan is
It would be
the
neat.
Paul Ellering of this podcast.
But it's crazy to me that they don't have a guy like Paul Ellering just as a manager or a character in wrestling, just a guy who only talks
But they
about
do.
who.
Well, they had Paul Ellering up until like a year ago when he left the Office of Pain.
No, that was actually way longer than you think.
No.
Yeah, it was 2018.
Shit.
That's actually honestly when I looked at it, that's way more recent than I thought it was.
Oh, see, I thought that was way more recent. Because I assume Akam and Razor have been booted from the WWE at this point because they are of course they're a tag team. Yeah, you're not lasting.
Well, we won't get to do an episode on them, so we will expand on that just because literally when you said Paul Ellering, how long did you think Paul Ellering was in wrestling for?
On again, off again for like 40 years.
Yeah. He's literally so his in-ring career is 6 years.
Yeah.
And then as a manager, he has the 7-year stint. And then 1 year in 92, where, of course, the Legion of Doom leave. And then they do that whole Hawk gets injured, starts really liking pain pills and coke. And
loves
Animal,
it. Goes to Japan a lot.
Animal does the Japanese, like, basically rework of the Road Warriors. And then they come back to the WWF. Paul Ellering is the manager of the Disciples of Apocalypse.
All right, well, we'll get to that. So it doesn't start up. You have LOD by themselves. They do the Godwin's neck injury, all that sort of stuff. And then LOD 2000, they ditch Sonny. Looks like they're going to get back with Ellering. Wrestling fans are smart enough now that it's like, that's exciting. And then, no, he sides with the guys that planned the Justice for the J6 victims. That's right. The Disciples of Apocalypse, Brian Lee, the Harris brothers, and Crush. Who put these drug addicts together? I don't know, but they definitely sell drugs.
And also, just couldn't look more like Paul Ellering couldn't look more like the leader of a Nazi gang if he tried.
That's very funny, yes. Especially when he comes out for this thing, because he comes out wearing a shirt that says, I don't care, fight me. And he's so ripped and so short. That's
he's
exactly
so
it.
Jacked. Also, we should mention this. He's a champion bodybuilder and could apparently lift just as much as Hawk and Animal. It's just some people are smaller. And
yeah, that's the thing is he would have been the heel of the NWA if he had been 6 inches taller.
Yeah, because once again, this guy didn't have a chance to basically become an in-ring wrestler. Like, he just got injured as he was getting good. I was under the impression this dude had been around from, the 70s, all through the 70s and then got injured. Not like, oh, yeah, he was 6 years in, which is just when you're starting to learn how to be a really good wrestler, and then gets injured and decides, I'm going to be more successful than any other wrestler in history.
You know how crazy wrestling has changed? This guy was a high-level remembered manager, and he managed essentially 2 guys. They briefly had the Legion of Doom that the Road Warriors were in the NWA, but he managed 2 guys for basically his entire career. That's insane.
And then comes back for the DOA. Of course, they have a little, and that's a great angle, just the tease of him going with the Legion of Doom and obviously turning on them, and then, of course, planning the Oklahoma City bombing with the Harris brothers.
Of course, yes. Him and the guy who wrote Behold a Pale Horse revealed that Area 51 was not real. Also, the thing you have to remember is, what was his gimmick with DOA? DOA, they gave him a gimmick that was the most late 90s gimmick ever.
He likes to jizz.
No, he had a computer program that told him how the other wrestlers were going to behave, and that
Ooh.
helped the DUA. Isn't that insane?
I still think it's nuts that they on television in the late 90s, and we remember the Attitude Era as being 99 and like 98. Like all the
97.
disgusting
It start-
stuff
it
they did to
starts
women.
at-
Well, that's
it
what I'm
starts
getting
after
at.
the- Go ahead.
That's what I'm getting at is that they on television on a regular, like USA Network is like channel 6 in the States, and on that channel they were like, a Nation of Islam characters are going to fight these white supremacists. The white supremacists are the good guys.
Yes, and also the other good guys, inexplicably, a gang known as Los Boricuas, and then immediately they will be dismissed because one of them is very hairy.
Also, yes, that was it. Los Barricas, who was Savio Vega, one hairy guy, and everyone wears shirts because fucking
You know why.
shut up.
Yeah, everyone wears shirts because you will not be here long. No need to do sit-ups.
We need someone to lose to these racist teams.
Well, what's also crazy is DOA lasts the summer. DOA is basically the summer of 98, and they're gone.
And then they find the interesting thing, it's like when you find out someone's just been making an entire living off Hallmark movies. That's what the DOA did with wrestling, where it's like they find Vince Russo likes them, and then for the rest of their professional wrestling careers, they're just the heavy upper card team who eventually loses.
What's the Harris
Vince
Boys is what you're saying. You're not saying all of DOA. You're just saying the Harris Boys.
Sorry, yes, it's just the Harrises.
Yeah, because Brian Lee is ruled by no man. Well,
Brian
I
Lee.
assume he has
yeah.
some charges against him, but besides that,
Probably has a lot of charges. I didn't know that you could have just turned on this light the whole time. I thought you were at your mom's not turning a light on because you didn't want to wake her up.
no, I was like, we're recording this so late, and so I was like in bed because I'm so tired. Like literally, like this
It's
is what I
about
was
1
doing.
a.m., yeah.
I was just going, do not fall asleep. And that's all I was doing. And then we started recording, and I was just like, I just didn't turn the light on.
That's really funny. All right.
I drank so much water to keep me awake like a warrior.
Ooh, warrior. So
I'm
inducted
pissing.
into the WWE Hall of Fame.
I'm going to say this right now. Paul Ellering does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame based
No, he's
purely on the fact that
Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame.
Coco Beware was, I put her top 10 biggest pop of the Hulk Hogan era.
I
Like,
loved Coco Beware as a kid.
Coco
And a bird.
Beware ruled as a kid. Yeah, of course. Frankie. Yeah. Do the Birdman. Also,
Do the
Jesse.
bird.
Yeah. Bird.
And then I heard Cornette talk about it. He's like, Coco Beware, great talent until he got fucking all that money and got fat. It's like, okay.
Yeah, easy.
He made a lot of money pretending to be a bird, and then he had to lose. Like it's better. What he did is better than what you had planned for him.
It's very funny. Vince McMahon, every once in a generation, always just like, you're a truck, you're a bird. There we go. Also, yeah.
So what I think is one of the most unsung things about this man's career is he comes back in 2016. Triple H calls him up because Triple H fucking loves the NWA. And you know what?
This is the best time also this is the best time in NXT ever. This is the best time. 2016, bad time for American politics. Amazing time for basically a super indie existing on the WWE network.
This is the fucking funny thing about NXT is NXT, I feel like, is the sort of realized version of AEW where it's like, let's get indie guys and then we'll do the NWA as well, and that's fully what AEW is now.
It's basically
AEW is just a bunch of factions like they had in the NWA, like we talked about.
Paul Jones' Army versus Jimmy Valiant's Boogie Woogie Boys.
You don't have to, and this is so important to the NWA, you don't have to be a top level talent to be in a faction.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's not like it's a joke faction like the 3-man band. Also,
No.
Tag teams are an entity unto their own. Something like that in the NWA was so good at doing. And it just made it just a more well-rounded product. Don't you agree, Dylan?
So Occam's Razor, the authors of Pain,
are
managed by Paul Ellering, and he really does nothing except for he comes out first. They
I
line up
disagree
behind him.
entirely.
Then he says, "Go to the ring." They do, and it's fucking sweet. And Paul Ellering has aged well because he bicks his fucking head, and he only has to dye that fucking goatee, baby. And once again, he's stocky, so he's like an intimidating guy. But also, Akam and Razor are fucking huge. They can't really wrestle that well, but who gives a fucking shit? There's two of them, so they both get to share the duties. Why not? Let's go. Let's fucking go.
They are absolutely amazing, and the sad part is not with the company anymore. Like everyone else who was really good in NXT, it was like, nah.
Well, Ellering does this great job managing them, and then of course, as soon as they get called up to the main roster, one of the weirdest writing offs of a character I've ever seen, where it's like they don't even beat up Ellering, he starts to walk out with them, and then they put their hand on him and then go to the back, and he just like leaves wrestling forever.
Well, it's because, by the way, Paul Ellering was probably a no touch, and he wanted to do like he just wanted to walk out on Raw one last time, do something, and they were like, all right, let's do that. Because I bet you
They
he was
wrote
like,
him off, I guess. But it's also like Vince just clearly, it's like they clearly benefited so much from having a guy who was just like there to teach them, because these were new wrestlers as well, teaching them the basics of professional wrestling and the basics of being a monster tag team, and just being a guy that the audience knows, so you have that connection of like. And this was, I think, the other thing about the Authors of Pain that was really good was they were like the Road Warriors, but they were far enough away from the Road Warriors, were still being like them, that it worked having Ellering.
yeah, it was that thing of
Managed.
Ellering had done enough and like it'd been enough time that it was like, oh, how long has that guy been around? Here's who he used to manage, not like he's now found the next version of who he's going to manage. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I think that what's also interesting about Authors of Pain is their finishing move is much like the Doomsday device in that you do not want the crackhead doing that part where he just kicks you in the head.
Yeah, and it's
But I
like-
also would say this about Paul Ellering at this point is even then he has the rolled up Wall Street Journal. Like they consistently have a couple of things that are just Paul Ellering's, and it's so nice to see.
Yeah, exactly. And NXT is, of course, for nerds who are like, that's Paul Ellering.
Well,
cool.
it was for nerds, and then they tried to use it to compete with AEW, and now it's just going to be, for some reason, Vince McMahon's now just going to produce however much amount of television with the weirdest wrestlers ever. No more indie wrestlers, only recruits from universities. Oh, God.
Jacked. Just fucking jacked. What's that guy's name? Braun Breaker? Fuck. Rick Steiner's
it's
kid
just
is
gonna be
fucking jacked and fucking.
It's going to be absolutely fucking awesome. Just two guys with backs the size of drive-in movie theater screens just leaning on each other.
Just slapping each other.
Yeah.
Fuck out.
Whoever dies of cardiac arrest first loses.
Also, I will say this about Braun Breaker. Super sick looking, except for like he can't grow the middle of his mustache at all. Like I can't really grow the middle, but this dude's mustache starts like it's the anti-Hitler mustache my buddy used to call it, where it's like
Very funny.
The nose, his nose is watch it. It makes you very uncomfortable once you notice it, where you're like, just don't have that, or just have this part of your goatee. You don't have to even fuck with the mustache, man.
Here's what I suggest. Don't watch that video. Dylan watch scary videos. Bingo.
Rachel Ellering, of course, Paul Ellering's daughter, is now in professional wrestling. John, what's your favorite thing about Paul Ellering as you fall asleep?
I love that he's going to be, I'm going to dream about him. I love that I'm going to dream. I think his promos are amazing. I think that he is the unsung promo king of managers. Bobby Heenan gets all the credit he deserves. Jim Cornette gets all the credit he deserves. Paul Ellering does not. Also for the intimidation factor of the fact that like the manager of the Road Warriors needs to be a stacked guy who might have to fight them because they're manic. And then all the way to the Authors of Pain that are these like giant brutes, but are so like mindless in violence. They need to be controlled by a smart man. Like he has this vindictive nature to the point that like I've brought a computer science to a biker gang. Which, now that I think about it, is really aping Kurt Metzger and all the other white supremacists in the 90s.
Yeah.
Not a good look
I
for
was gonna
Paul
say,
Ellering.
Paul Ellering was like, I'm going to create a bunch of memes that'll go viral, that'll really take down the welfare state.
Pepe the Frog. The thing I just want to say, Paul Ellering, unsung amazing manager, and his promos. That's the high point. What about you, you big fuck?
Well, I mean, I think that you got to say the high point is that first run with the Road Warriors.
You don't have to say that. You can say
peaking.
whatever you want.
And then he honestly losing Paul Ellering ruins the Legion of Doom because Hawk goes off the rails. Animal's fine, but Hawk goes off the rails, and Hawk's the star of the team. Animal only exists because Hawk fucking couldn't get his shit together. And once you lose Hawk, you lose the whole team, and that's pretty much what happened. Even though,
well, I don't know,
they still had some
Heidenreich.
great fucking. Oh yeah, they got Heidenreich. So actually, no, they were better actually without Ellering. So I switched that. The best thing about his career is that car accident.
Yep.
Yeah. And the worst thing is, I don't think there is one. I think
Paul Ellering had the best life. He now literally owns a restaurant on a lake and is a 3-time participant in the Iditarod and races like 3 marathons a year. He's doing awesome.
He likes
Here's how you
fitness.
can tell. We can't riff on him. He's just a nice man. Me and Gene Okerlund was a drunk, and we have literally made hours of, and then he turned her skull into a candle content. And Paul Ellering, it's like, he was a nice boy.
You know what? I'll invent this right now. I would say that Paul Ellering is our first inductee into the Jim Brunzell Hall of Fame, which is just a wrestler who's a nice guy.
Yeah, my God.
The Jim Brunzell Hall of Fame, where a guy
Jim Brunzell Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Just, hey, can I ask you about the Killer Bees? Oh, sure. Do you want to know who's nice? Hint, everybody. Even Brian B. Belair.
Not Brian B. Blair's son, though, but that's just because he's rude to my friend, Brian B. Blair.
All right, so next week we're going to talk about, oh my God, there was another manager, wasn't it? Was it Paul Jones? There was Paul Jones, and then there was someone else.
Let's do Paul Jones next week. Paul Jones.
Paul Jones of Paul Jones Army. I don't know this fucking guy.
Paul Jones behind Michael Jordan for the most recent appearance of a Hitler mustache on television, as far as I'm concerned.
That's good. Was he the guy who, did he manage, there's like someone sent me this, like a promotion that was like, they're the heels, but then their characters were, we love the apartheid in the 80s.
Oh my God, I don't know who that was, but I assume he did,
it's like
yes.
Some small company was like, how about this? Our main heels, they love the apartheid. And then, like, much like Baron von Raschke, they just did that character for so long, they eventually became baby faces, and people go in the country and like, what the fuck is this? Baron von Raschke was a Nazi so long, everyone was like, I guess we like this Nazi.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen The Claw? That's all I'm saying.
He goose steps. Really cool.
Yeah. Also, I always wondered why after World War II, if there was a Nazi in the ring, I'd just be like, we got to kill my enemy. You know what I mean? It's so weird where it's like...
just stab this man?
Yeah. I thought we beat them 5 years ago. No, that one guy is back, and he's going to get his vengeance on the U.S. by beating Fritz von Erich.
I went to an indie show one time, and there was a guy named the Nazi. He was one of the characters, and he was like, now we're not, and then his manager came in and was like, now we're not racist, and everyone laughed really, really hard. And the manager couldn't get the crowd back.
Yeah. Makes sense. Know what else makes sense?
Makes sense. What makes sense?
Me going to bed right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Dylan, we can find you on Twitter. That's DYLANGO at that T. You can find me, John Hastings, the John Hastings, on all social media. Check out my other podcast, Untitled Twitch Stream. That's UTS. Or check it out on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Untitled Twitch Stream. Dylan, do you have any comedy releases? I do. They're available where all good comedy releases are streamed. Search John Hastings or Dylan Gott for them, and then suck our thumbs like we're babies.
Oh, at Wrestler Review, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. For all that, we're gonna start posting more on Instagram. I invested in a program that'll set them all, so I'll just do it once and then. Who knows? I mean, maybe a Dark Side of the Ring will come out about the guy, and I'll be like, oh, this guy was a great wrestler on the day of. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, anyway, that'll be fun.
Goodbye.
Also, let's all just wait for the Jerry Lawler Dark Side of the Ring, so then literally all the predictions we ever made on this program come true.
Cool.
I love you all.